Thanks for joining us for the Kids First Parenting Series, Discipline Means to Teach. Today you're watching Part 3, Parenting with the Brain in Mind. My name is Mia Wilson, and I am an early childhood consultant for Kids First, a child and family therapist in the Valley, and I'm also a mother to an 8-year-old little girl. The information I'll be going over with you today comes from two of our favorite parenting experts, Dr. Tina Payne-Bryson and Dr. Dan Siegel. Together, they have co-authored 3 books, The Whole Brain Child, No Drama Discipline, and The Yes Brain. Here are a few of the key points that I'll be going over today. The first is, when we see discipline as a chance to teach our children what to do instead, it allows us to see challenging behavior and our child in a whole new light. Rather than becoming angry at our child for misbehavior, we can think to ourselves, you know what, her brain is still developing. She doesn't know how to do that yet. Or, no wonder she's having a hard time stopping and thinking before interrupting. Her prefrontal cortex is still under construction. When we see misbehaviors as, you know what, my child actually needs some help learning how to do that, it keeps us from getting angry, and we can keep a lot more positivity in our relationship, and we can also tackle the real problem behind the misbehavior. Another key point that I want to mention and that we'll be going over is that when we're faced with a child's misbehavior, it's good to notice if emotions are running high. If the child's emotions are running high, or if our emotions are running high, using logic is not going to work very well. Because the brain, our brain or our child's brain, is in a very illogical, emotional, and reactive state. It's really hard to think clearly. We talk a lot about this in our Connecting with Your Child to Build Resilience series. So if you haven't checked that out, highly recommend that you do that. Using emotionally responsive strategies will also move our child to a receptive state. So we're going to be going over some brain-based strategies that will really be helpful in getting your child to a state where you can actually teach them something. Then we will have transformed a situation that is maybe tricky or volatile into a teachable moment, and that's really what we want. So now for some brain-based strategies. Megan mentioned in part 2 that timeouts don't really work very well, and this may come as a surprise to you. I want to talk a little bit about why they don't work, because it can be one of those automatic responses that we have as a parents is to send our child to their room for a timeout. It's just not effective. And I want to explain what Dan and Tina say about timeouts, because it will help you understand why they don't work. First of all, we often use timeouts as a chance for our child, we think that it's going to be a chance for our child to calm down. The problem is that a lot of our young children don't know how to calm down, and so it really doesn't work. In fact, if we send them there when they're upset, it tends to just be an opportunity for them to get even more angry, and those feelings just build and multiply, and they feel rejected by us because we've sent them to their room. So when you add more anger and feeling rejected on top of the original situation, we're just adding fuel to the fire. Keep in mind, too, that young children can often feel really frightened by these big feelings. Sometimes they feel really out of control. And so it can be a really scary experience to be sent to their room. We're sending them the message when we send them to the room in that moment that I don't want to be with you when you have really big feelings. You need to go away and take care of this, and when you're feeling better, you can come back. The problem is they don't know how to calm down, and they need us. They're in emotional pain right then, and they need us to help them. The other thing we use timeouts for is in hopes that our child is going to be thinking about what they're doing wrong and what they should do better. And really, they're just sitting in there getting more angry at us, which is really unraveling our relationship. It's affecting our relationship in a negative way. And they don't know what they're supposed to do instead. So we're really, in a nutshell, when we're using timeouts, we're missing a valuable opportunity to practice regulating feelings, to deepen our connection with our child, and to teach them what we want them to do instead. So timeouts are not the way to go, and you can start making an adjustment to your parenting right now by choosing not to use timeouts. A couple of the brain-based strategies that Dan and Tina have kind of developed and like to teach us about in their books, The Whole Brain Child and No Drama Discipline, are connect and redirect, name it to tame it, engage, don't enrage, and move it or lose it. So these are fun names, and as I explain them, you'll understand where the names come from. So we mentioned connect and redirect a little bit in our earlier parenting series, which again, I encourage you to check out. But basically, it emphasizes the fact that when our child is in a reactive state or an emotional state, using logic is really just going to further escalate the situation. If we're using logical parenting strategies, it's just not going to work. Because he's in a reactive state, we first must connect right brain to right brain. We need to use strategies that the right brain is really going to understand. These strategies that the right brain really responds to well are things like using a supportive tone of voice, and using nurturing body language to let our child know, I'm here for you, I care about you, and I care about your situation. I'm going to help you. Making sure we're validating their feelings and just showing some empathy. Taking deep breaths is also really helpful for the right brain. After you've connected and moved your child to a receptive state where he can actually hear what you're saying and what you're trying to teach, then you can start to redirect the behavior or teach him a more appropriate way to handle the situation. So at this point, when you're redirecting, you might be able to set some limits or work out a compromise with your child because they're in a rational state now. They can actually hear you and do this. This is also a chance to remind your child what the rule is or what the expectation is that you have. And you can let your child know what they can do instead in that moment. So the thing about connecting and redirecting is connecting does three important things. One is it moves your child from a reactive emotional state to a receptive state where you can actually do some of that parenting that you want to do. It also deepens your connection with your child, which is really important. We don't want our moments of discipline to end up derailing our relationship. We really want to stay connected. And something that may come as a surprise is that when we're connecting, we're actually wiring our child's brain for regulation and resilience in the future. So it works now, in the moment, and in the future. So here's an example of connecting. Oh no, it looks like you got really mad when your painting didn't turn out the way you wanted it to. Paint can be a really hard thing to use. It can be really tricky. I'm sorry that the paint dripped where you didn't want it to. How can we help your picture? Yes, I think you're right. I think we can turn that paint drip into a butterfly pretty easily, can't we? Here's the redirecting part. But what do you think we need to do first? Yeah, we're going to need to clean up the paint from when you threw the paintbrush, aren't we? How do you think we should do that? Yeah, I think that'll work. That'll work great. Honey, next time you're frustrated because your art project isn't going the way you want, what can you do instead of throwing the paintbrush? It's totally understandable to feel angry and mad, but throwing things can cause some pretty big problems, even bigger than getting paint on the counter. When you feel mad next time, what can you do? And so your child might be able to brainstorm with you some things like using a cool down kit or asking for help or taking a break if they're feeling frustrated. And you might go into teaching them about, maybe not at this moment, the teachable moment for this, the deeper learning might happen later at a different time, but you might be able to teach them how to recognize that their feelings are starting to get a little frustrated. So that might be some deeper learning that you do at a different moment. So the next strategy is name it to tame it. And basically this means allowing the child and encouraging the child to tell you what happened, because what that does is it links the right brain and left brain together. It integrates those two parts. The right brain is very emotional, the left brain is really logical. So when you can get the child to tell the story and also name the feelings at some point, it really brings those two parts of the brain together so you can do your logical parenting. So this might sound like you're walking into your child's room because you hear some angry stuff is going on there. There's yelling or sobbing, and there may be toys being thrown even. And you might say, oh my goodness, it looks like you're so angry right now. What happened? Oh, they weren't letting you play with them? I bet that really hurt your feelings. Tell me what else happened. How did that look? What should we do to help the situation? So that's an example of name it to tame it. You're naming feelings, you're getting them to tell the story, and that will help them move from a reactive state to a receptive state. Engage, don't enrage, really is referring to engaging the upstairs brain where the problem solving can happen, being reasonable and coming up with solutions. You want to engage that part of the brain instead of enraging the downstairs brain. So if your child bursts into tears and says, "I will not take a shower and you can't make me," you could say, "You're really mad. You don't want to take a shower tonight. This is a real dilemma though, because tomorrow is picture day at school and you really need a shower. But you know what? You're pretty good at coming up with solutions. You're my little problem solver. How about if I give you a few minutes to think of a solution to this and see what you can come up with? I bet you can come up with a solution that will make both of us happy. You want to give that a try?" So that's an example of engage, don't enrage. You're getting their upstairs brain to do some of the thinking. Move it or lose it refers to moving your body in order to avoid losing your mind. Research shows that when we change our physical state through movement or relaxation and meditation, we can actually change our emotional state. So if our child is getting really upset in a moment where we might need to discipline, or they're upset and that is part of the issue that we need to discipline and teach, we can get our child to move his or her body. This might be, let's hop up the stairs like a bunny to brush our teeth. Or, you know what, let's go outside and go for a walk. It is getting hot in here. Lots of feelings are flying around. Let's go for a walk. Just get your child's body moving and they're going to calm down. That's going to integrate the brain again. And then you can go to problem solving, limit setting, stating the expectations. Just keep in mind that the teachable moment might come later. You won't be able to do that in the reactive state. So let's take a look at how Tina shares an example of connect and redirect.
We oftentimes try to use logic or problem solving and it escalates things further, but we keep doing it. I don't know why we keep doing non-productive things over and over. But this is where I come back to the story with my son. So remember, he marched down the stairs. "You never leave me a note in the middle of the night. I hate homework and my birthday isn't for 9 more months." Was his left logical brain online at that time? Was it in the room? It wasn't there. He was having a right hemisphere sort of tsunami at that time. It was not logical. And my instincts were to give logical left brain responses. And I know if I had done that, he would have marched back upstairs with his arms folded, feeling like, I don't understand him, I'm so mean, and it would have taken him a long time to fall asleep. What I did instead was I did this first strategy in the book, connect and redirect. Now you can think about it in terms of connecting emotionally before you redirect behavior, but we're actually talking about something deeper than that. We're talking about connecting right hemisphere to right hemisphere first. And then, when that happens, we can bring the left hemisphere back in. We can move our children to a state of integration. And here's how that looks. You see here, we're talking about connecting using a lot of nonverbal communication. Pausing, using our tone of voice, using touch. And then, we're going to redirect by we're going to redirect the left hemisphere to join the picture. And we're going to do problem solving, we're going to use logic, we're going to set boundaries around behavior, these kinds of things. So the way that looked then, and I do plenty of things poorly as a parent. At some point today, I'll probably tell you a moment where I didn't handle things well. But in this moment, I was effective in addressing the behavior and also making him feel cared for. So the way it worked, he said, and my birthday's not for 9 more months. I pull him to me, and his arms are still folded. He's not interested in embracing. I pull him to me and I do this. Sometimes it's really hard, isn't it? And he says, yes, because you left a note for Luke on the roof of the bunk bed, and you didn't leave, when he was sick, and you didn't leave one for me. I would have missed that, right? I didn't remember that. I would have missed that had I just sent him upstairs. And I said, and you wanted me to think of you then too. And I took another breath. And he said, yes. And he wrapped his arms around me. Now, this interaction that I just told you about was about 30 seconds. The connect right brain to right brain took about 30 seconds. And then I said, I could see his posture change. I could see the shift in him. And then I said, would you like for me to leave you a note in the middle of the night tonight? That's left brain, right? And he said, yes, but you can't leave one for Luke. You've got to make it fair. And I said, and tomorrow, why don't we talk about making homework a little bit more tolerable? And if you'd like, we can plan the theme of your next birthday as well. But it's getting really late. Let's go on up. I'll tuck you in. Is that okay? And he said, yes. I walked with him up the stairs with my arm around him, tucked him in. He was asleep a few minutes later. So the whole interaction of the stomping till back upstairs, falling asleep, feeling connected, cared for, and having the experience of having a non-integrated brain move to a state of having an integrated brain. And remember, Dan said that mass experience, mass practice is what grows the brain, what changes the brain. So I used this opportunity to make a shift, help him shift back to a state of integration. So his brain gets practice doing that. So this is an idea of connect and redirect. Does that make sense? You guys with me? Okay. So that's the first strategy, connect and redirect.
So I think that's a great example that Tina gives us of how she gets the left brain and right brain back into integration, gets her child back into a receptive state, can connect with her child for just a few seconds. It makes the biggest difference. And her child gets experience with regulation and feeling cared for. And that is what wires the brain for her child and our children to be able to do that in the future. It's a great example. So I'm going to talk about one more strategy, and this is one of my favorites. It's called chase the why. So when we're facing our child's less than desirable behavior next time, try chasing the why. This comes from Dan and Tina again in their No Drama Discipline book. So instead of thinking that your child is being disrespectful on purpose or that he just likes trying to make your life difficult, chasing the why helps us see the misbehavior differently. Here's how you do it. First, look at the misbehavior and think to yourself, why did my child act this way? What is he trying to tell me? Remember that misbehavior is often fueled by something else. It almost always is fueled by something else. There's no such thing as a bad kid, even though it might seem like it sometimes. There's a reason your child is misbehaving. Sometimes it's related to emotional things. Sometimes it's because your child doesn't know what to do instead. The second step is think to yourself, what do I want to teach my child? What skill does he still need to learn right now? When you do this, you can really get to the bottom of why your child is misbehaving. And the third piece is to figure out the best way to teach that skill to your child. So, for example, here's an example from our home. Our little girl was having a hard time getting ready in the morning. She was getting distracted and coming in and checking with us a lot in the morning while she was trying to get ready and kept getting engaged in stories and was just really off track. And so I thought, why is she doing this? Well, part of it is she can't remember the steps she's supposed to do, and she's getting really distracted by other things in her room. She's forgetting what she's supposed to do. And so we decided to make some visual cues. So we made pictures of the different things with words next to them, of the different tasks that she was supposed to do, and we laid them out on the floor for her. So then she had a concrete reminder that there's something you're supposed to be doing, because there are these little cards here on the floor. So when she's playing around, she'd get reminded, oh, I'm supposed to be doing these. And they were also little steps of what she was supposed to be doing, so she could learn to become a little more independent with these tasks. And it removed the negative nagging and constant reminding from myself to her. And so those worked really well for her. That was an example of figuring out why that was happening, what skills she needed, and what was the best way I could teach her that skill. Another example I thought was really cute is that when you think about little children coming in from recess, or big kids in elementary school coming in for recess and still being kind of wild and wound up, and a teacher reminding them that we're inside now, we have to use our inside voices. Let's give one last little growl into our hands and put it in our pocket. And that was a really great way to teach the children the skills that they needed and made it fun and really concrete for them. So hopefully these brain-based strategies will give you some new ways to teach your children what you want them to do as a form of your discipline instead of consequencing or nagging or yelling. Thanks for joining us. We love sharing this information with you. We think it's really powerful and helpful. We hope that you'll check out our other parenting videos in this series and our other series. Our contact information is listed on the slide, so if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. And we've also listed some links to some of the resources that we like to use. Feel free to check those out or check out these books. Thanks.